When does the shutdown end? New unemployment numbers. The debt crisis grows. De Blasio says no protests allowed. Where's the praise for Florida? Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, says no going to church until there's a vaccine. Biden's hypocrisy is mind-blowing. And was FISA ever constitutional? That and more coming up.
If you ask them, what can we do for you? What can we get you? What do you need? To a person, no matter where they work across this country, they say the same thing to me. Stay home. Please do what you can to keep cases down. So my question is, how many of us who say we love them don't really show that love? My message for all of you on this day is show the love. Do what you can to keep cases down. Your choice isn't just about you. You know now that it affects others, including maybe them. And how about our government? Get them the damn PPE they need. Have it made in this country. Remember Rosie the Riveter. These are desperate times, everybody says it. How about having desperate times call for desperate measures? Really? America can't muster making gowns and masks when we made aircraft carriers and B-24 bombers? Also, here's something else that would be really great for them. A new bill in the House from New York Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. Now, the bill would forgive student debt for all healthcare workers who are literally putting their lives on the line to save others. There's precedent for this. We do it for the military, and we should.
Oh, my. So much to work through there. Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show, everybody. Appreciate you joining. Well, it's starting to get a little sunnier, a little warmer here in New York, thank God, so that'll be helpful. Hopefully, wherever you are across the country, the weather's improving. When you're on lockdown, when the country is in as difficult as a position as it is right now, anything that you can look to as improvement, you got to celebrate a little bit, right? So better weather, even the small things, you have to become appreciative of. But here we have not the Governor Cuomo, but in fact, Bro Cuomo, the CNN anchor, who managed to turn his own case of COVID-19 into a piece of performance theater, as we saw when he emerged from a basement on CNN. And we all know that he had already left the basement, gone out, and he was infected with COVID-19. And here he is lecturing the rest of us. If you care about nurses and first responders, if you really want to help them, you know what you'll do? Stay home. Stay home. We're now on 2 months of staying home. We're going to get to 3 months of staying home, 4 months of staying home. At some point, I'm just going to say no. I think a lot of other people are already there. In New York, we have a greater risk than other places across the country. Not every place, but New York has been, as we've discussed many times, particularly hard hit by this. But now we reach this stage where we understand what the economic consequences are starting to look like. We haven't seen the full scope of it. And I've just got to say, the hypocrisy from Bro Cuomo here is pretty stunning. This is someone who, just like George Stephanopoulos, when he's been seen walking around without his mask on, and he's lecturing everybody else about how he needs to, how they need to be wearing masks. This has become a big exercise in virtue signaling for people. You know, wear your mask, be a good patriot. Even though wearing masks outside, all the evidence, all the data shows that it is not, in fact, necessary. I mean, for some of you, if you want to do it, that's up to you. But it's not something that people should certainly be legally obligated to do in public. And so this is where I've got to say it's time for us to start having more frank conversations about what we really think is going to happen here. It's easy to lecture everybody about how just stay home, protect our frontline healthcare workers. What does the rest of society do? We can't leave. Until when? When does lockdown end? What are we really going to do if lockdown continues for another 6, 9, 12, 18 months? We were told all along that we would not get to this point. We were told that this was about flattening the curve, making sure that hospital capacity was not overwhelmed. Now we're being told that we have to live in this really perpetual state of lockdown until the vaccine comes along, and who knows when that will be. but we'll be in this perpetual state of lockdown until the libs decide that it's okay. And increasingly, I've got to say, it feels like it's going to be right around mid to late November 2020 when really we can start talking about the lockdowns ending. I wish it weren't the case that it were this blatantly political, but I think we've gotten there already. Because you can't make the case. There is no case that we would be wise to continue doing what we do, given what we know about the virus. I mean, here is now there was Bro Cuomo. Do you even live, bro? The CNN anchor who has managed to become more prominent over there than ever based on a whole bunch of things, including threatening to throw a substantially smaller, weaker man down a flight of stairs in a crowded public restaurant in the very fancy vacation resort of Shelter Island, knowing that he was on video and really showing everybody what a tough guy he was. Some conservatives thought that was a good reaction. No, you can mouth off to somebody when they mouth off to you in public, but to square off against them when you have your wife and kids nearby and they're clearly not a physical threat to you, and to threaten to throw them down a flight of stairs when you're a public figure, when they have made no physical threat against you. No, I think that was crazy, and I'm surprised that people, well, look, to each his own, but I'm surprised that people thought that was a normal response. You know, someone threatens you, yeah, then you can threaten them back. But if someone just calls you a name you don't like, I get called names I don't like all the time. People say stupid, mean things to me. I don't say, oh, I'm going to fight you. That's what idiots do. Oh, I'm going to fight you. Especially online on Twitter, right? I'm never going to see these people. You know, what are we really going to do? Although I do think the Buck Sexton Alex Jones charity boxing match would probably be quite entertaining for folks. So anyway, the problem that we're running into is that they're moving the goalposts, pretending like they're not, and there is no exit plan from the lockdown for the libs. They've set all these different these different tripwires, if you will. They've put in place all of these benchmarks that we have to hit that they know we're not going to hit. So then it just turns into their discretion, because what's going to happen is they're going to start to have to waive certain benchmarks and say, okay, we're going to ease this, we're going to ease that. You know, California is moving to open retail stores next week. You know, there's all this good news, and then there are still people that are, oh, no, coronavirus, we can't leave, we can't go outside. But if you look at what's happening around the world, there's good news from the perspective of opening back up societies. Germany's opening up. Italy is in the stages of reopening. Spain, places that have been hit terribly by the disease, are saying, look, we got to start living life again. So why is it that America is the country that we're all a second wave and we can't go outside? Here's Governor Cuomo in New York. And unfortunately, New York really is the template, was used as the template for how the rest of the country needs to respond to this virus, which was wrong. But New York became the test case that everybody else had to rely on for their own reactions. And the data coming out of New York, we extrapolated from that what we should do for the rest of the country. And it was a mistake. It was a mistake. Here's the governor of New York State telling us all, reacting to this stunning bit of news. You see, remember, we're told the lockdown is saving a lot of lives because lockdowns are preventing the spread of disease. Meanwhile, if you look at charts of different countries, every country has this, you see a big spike in cases and then the drop off in cases. Now, some, the numbers are different because the population sizes are different. But whether they've gone with extreme lockdown or minimal lockdown, like in the case of Sweden, the curve seems to be pretty much the same. So where is the real benefit that we see from these lockdowns? It's always been assumed that if we do what they say with this, there'll be far few. Well, is it far fewer cases in the long run or far fewer cases week to week and extending it out? Because this is the concept that the people that are the lockdown forever, this is what they don't understand. If you have a 6-month-long run of this virus, and let's say you do the bare minimum of mitigation, and you end up with 100,000 dead, which is, it looks like right now we're heading for 100,000 dead between now and August, whatever the models, the models keep changing. Who knows? The models are wrong all the time. But if you're at 100,000 dead, if we did extreme mitigation for, let's say, 18 months. So if we kept the lockdown going for 18 months and you still end up with 100,000 dead, have you really limited the infections, or are you just slowing the speed with which people are becoming infected? Now, it's tough to answer that. They would say, well, no, you're at 100,000 and not 200,000 dead over the same period of time. But is effectively everybody going to get is everyone going to get infected with this over time? Because then the mortality rate is very likely to be whatever it is for the disease is what it's going to be over the overall population. Are we heading for actual slow speed herd immunity, or do we think that somehow we're going to just stop the disease? Because the initial program, it was 15 days to slow the spread, not to stop the spread. Now we've got people suggesting that we can stop the spread if only we stay home. This is where Governor Cuomo's got a problem, though, because people are staying home and they're still getting infected. Play clip 3.
This is a surprise. Overwhelmingly, the people were at home, where there's been a lot of speculation about this. A lot of people, again, had opinions. A lot of people have been arguing where they come from and where we should be focusing. But if you notice, 18% of the people came from nursing homes. Less than 1% came from jail or prison. 2% came from the homeless population. 2% from other congregate facilities. But 66% of the people were at home, which is shocking to us. Disproportionately older. But by the way, older starts at 51 years old.
2/3 of people that are hospitalized with COVID in the most recent weekly data they have, 2/3 of them were on lockdown, were staying home, and they're still getting infected. So either you look at this and you say there are only a few possibilities here. You have people who are in the very limited travel they do, going to the grocery store, going to the pharmacy, still, even doing that once or twice a week, getting infected in numbers that are large enough to be concerning. We're still seeing a steady stream of infections here in New York. And then across the country, you have more and more people who are still getting infected. But we're home. The cell phone data has showed that over 90% of people have been adhering to the lockdown. Based on the GPS monitoring, it's monitoring, talk about the mass surveillance state. We're already out of mass surveillance state. It's just until somebody figures out how to really harness it and really use it. Well, they're called social media companies, Buck. But this is where we are. We still, even with lockdown, have 300,000. This is from Dr. Scott Gottlieb. 300,000 new cases a day. So all these people are saying we're saving all these lives through the lockdown. I mean, we're getting 300,000 cases a day. How many cases a day would we get if we went to work, but still tried to limit mass gatherings and took some of these? Oh, it would be 1 million a day? It would be 10 million a day? And even with the lockdown, I mean, this is the people, part of the false choice that's set up here. And I know this is all kind of, it gets so conceptual and what's going on. But our society is at risk. I mean, our economy is dying. It is dying right now. I have the unemployment numbers, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But the people who don't want to reopen keep saying that people will die if we reopen. And you say to this, well, people are dying right now, even with the lockdown. And we're having this enormous societal, not just economic. I mean, our whole society is bearing this tremendous cost. And people won't soon forget the images of parents arrested in front of their children for going to play in a playground and law enforcement officers going along with it. My friends, I know that you do not judge the whole community of hundreds of thousands of law enforcement officers across the country by the actions of any one, two, or a few dozen. But perception is a different thing from reality here. And we've had a few very bad looks of overzealous, over-aggressive law enforcement with regard to the social distancing and the lockdown stuff. There's going to be a cost to that as well. There's a lot that's going on here that is damaging to our society, damaging to our ability to feel good about who's in charge of this country at the state, local, and at the national level. And can we trust the bureaucracy? The answer is no. You cannot trust the bureaucracy. And they've lied to us, and they've been wrong. And now they're getting more, as their theories fall apart, and as the data is increasingly not supportive of their positions, they're lying to us. And then they're getting more aggressive, right? So we see that they've been wrong, and then they say, oh, no, we weren't wrong, and the models don't really matter anymore. They keep shifting and changing. Meanwhile, people are getting infected across the country. The economy's in free fall, and they act like we've done some huge public service by locking down most of the United States. Europe is opening up. Are they a bunch of murderers? Are they a bunch of barbarians who don't care about grandma dying? They're opening up. Sweden never really closed. But if you want to start having people, open up their flower stores in time for Mother's Day, clothing stores, open up furniture stores, allow people to start going into offices, providing different services. And I'm not saying don't wear masks inside. I'm not saying don't wash your hands and we shouldn't protect the vulnerable. But what option are these people that think that it's so brave and bold to go on TV and say, stay home? How long? How much longer? What are we trying to achieve? Give me the benchmarks about test and trace are absurd. They're insane. But it's all ultimately about another thing, and you know what it is. Who's going to get blamed? There's going to be death from COVID-19 for the rest of this year. It's 100% guaranteed. So now the discussion about reopening is really about who's going to get blamed for those deaths, not about how we stop them. I grew up reading some of the greats, Tom Clancy, Michael Crichton, people that write action and thrillers and sci-fi who really know how to bring you into the heart of the story. And guess who else is right up there with them? Jack Carr. My buddy Jack Carr has a new book out called Savage Son. It's the latest in the Terminal List series. And Jack's a former Navy SEAL, so he really understands the action and the worlds that he's writing about. I'm ex-CIA. When Jack writes about the intel community, you realize this is a guy who's actually been there, talked the talk, and walked the walk. You want to check out Savage Son. I'm listening to it right now on audiobook. That's what I'd recommend. Go download Savage Son wherever you listen to audiobooks. It's a great listen. It'd also be a great read. But check out the audiobook version. You can go to Audible, which Amazon owns. You can go anywhere you get audiobooks. Check out Savage Son, the latest in the Terminal List series by Jack Carr today.
So I call these people warriors, and I'm actually calling now, as you know, John, the nation warriors. We have to be warriors. We can't keep our country closed down for years, and we have to do something. And hopefully that won't be the case, John, but it could very well be the case. You won't be locked in a house, and some people should stay if you're over a certain age. I mean, you've seen that, right? Elderly people, or especially elderly people with a problem, where they have a problem. It attacks these people viciously. And I think they will be staying back, and we're strongly recommending that they do that. We're saying over 60, and especially over 60 if you have diabetes or heart problems or whatever problem you might have. So, but we have to get our country open again. And you see it. Look, you cover it. People want to go back. You're going to have a problem if you don't do it. If you don't do it, you've got a very big problem.
We got to go back. Trump is right. I hope that he's learned from listening to people who do not have not just the best interests of the White House, but the American people. Do not have the best interests of the American people at heart. The left views this all as an opportunity, unfortunately.
My grandfather used to say, if you have your health, we can figure out anything else. We can fix anything else. If it's about money, we'll figure it out. But you have to have your health. That's why public health versus the economy. I don't see the trade-off.
Is it as easy as we can just ensure that everybody has their health? There are some very important, it's very important for us to understand this, very important false notions at the heart of the lockdown consensus. They can't save people from getting this disease. They've said that, oh, we got to do this because you'd say, oh, well, they're mitigating it. It's meaning so far fewer people are getting this. Really? Are fewer people getting it in places like New York because a quarter of us have already been exposed and have antibodies? And a lot of the most vulnerable people, remember, your vulnerability to the disease isn't just a question of how badly your body reacts to it and how much it overwhelms your immune system. It's also the initial infection. So a lot of people who are particularly susceptible, clearly in New York and in some other major urban areas, have already gotten the disease. So at some point, I mean, we talk about herd immunity and nobody ever really thinks this through. True herd immunity means there are so many people with antibodies to the disease that there are not enough vectors of spread that even those without antibodies are at real risk of getting it. And for certain diseases, for something like measles, for example, which is hyper contagious. I mean, I don't really understand the mechanism of why, but measles is like, if you're in a, this is why they've even had these people have done these parties for kids, which is, I do not recommend. I don't have kids. I don't know anything about this stuff, but they'll have a party where one kid with measles shows up and all these other kids, and they all get measles, right? I mean, this is what ends up, and it's like, if you show up, you're pretty much getting measles. The spread of the disease is much more difficult if there are people who have immunity all around you, even if you don't have immunity. That's the basics of herd immunity. And for some diseases, it's more like 80%. For measles, I think it's over 95% if you're going to have true herd. That's why the lowering of, and I'm not getting into a vaccination debate, so don't start sending me all that stuff, people. I love you. Don't start sending me all your vax stuff. But that's why when their vaccination level for measles drops down, there's all that people get all concerned. Just from a herd immunity standpoint, they're saying you're creating greater. And this is why whooping cough and measles in recent years, there have been outbreaks in places. Okay, and now we look at what the lockdown consensus is promising us, which is that they're able to protect our health. But are they really? We're doing exactly what they're telling us to do. We've been doing it for 2 months. How protected are we? How much has it really worked in New York? Or had the virus already spread far and wide and the most vulnerable? We can't protect nursing homes. We've been talking about that. The authorities made made the absolute wrong decisions about how to protect our seniors in nursing homes. So they keep taking this position of the moral high ground, like they're, if it saves just one life, they'll protect every life. And then we think about it, but you're not protecting every life, not even close. We're losing a lot of lives and suffering massive economic consequences and losing our constitutional rights and losing, honestly, at some point, what is the purpose? Why are people are going to start to say, why am I getting up and doing this every day? And this is where you're going to see a spike in drug abuse and suicide and overdose and all these things. We're still locked at our homes, forever? And I hate this stuff when people say we're never returning to normal. You know what? Shut up if you're saying that. We're going to return to normal. All right? We had 50 million people die from Spanish influenza in 1918. You know what 1918 was followed by? The Roaring Twenties. We're going to return to normal. I hope the cost is nowhere near, and I don't believe it will, what it was in 1918. But, if we can survive that, we are going to get through this and return to a place where people can gather and people can do things. And, maybe, just maybe, there'll be a few benefits of this. The silver linings of it will be pretty substantial. Like, for example, the lunacy within the scientific community that they need to focus billions and billions of dollars and have all these conferences about climate change because by the IPCC projection, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change at the UN, by their projection, we might be 2 degrees Celsius warmer in 100 years, and that will destroy the planet. Let's worry about not having a pandemic disease destroy modern civilization like now and for the next 10 years. How about that? That would be a better usage of time. You know that you who have been listening to the show, I've made this point many times before. There are people know I've been bringing up antibiotic resistant bacteria and really frightening stuff that's out there. I have mentioned pandemics way before this actually happened as what I'm scared about or what keeps me up at night. Anybody with a passing familiar. And how do I know that stuff? I'm not a scientist. History. I know more history than a vast majority of scientists. That I can tell you because I love history and read it all the time. And if you understand history, you know what the real risks are and you know what the real risks are not. And the people that are claiming we're all going to run out of food or that the world is going to melt because of CO2, they've been wrong in the past. They'll be wrong in the future. And there are reasons why they continue to allow their brains to make these same errors and try to push all the rest of us into believing them as well. But back to the governor here.
We have to have our health. We should protect human life. I don't care if a person is old. I'm old by your definition. I still think I have a value, right? My mother's old. She's the most precious person to me. So protect every life. And I'm not going to trade off public health. And we'll figure out the dollars and we'll figure out the economic impact.
You know what Venezuela looks like? You see the news footage of it, I'm sure, sometimes. Venezuela is an impoverished socialist narco state. I mean, it's run by narco traffickers. This is what, we have all these people who don't even understand how poor the country is because the reason that Maduro and his thugs are even able to feed themselves and pay the army and stay in charge is because they're selling cocaine and heroin on the global market. Yeah, that's right. You don't see a lot of that. And I do want to spend some time. I want to deep dive into it. So, and producer Mark, remind me on this one. And maybe we'll get one of our many Spec Ops friends to join. You know what would actually be great? If we could have, maybe we'll reach out to Jack Carr, whose book is doing so well right now, Savage Son, which I am listening to the audiobook of it. And this is what I do when I'm doing chores and things like that. When I say chores, that doesn't sound manly, right? Producer Mark, is there a more manly word for chores?
Household tasks? I don't know.
There we go. Doing my household tasks. Thank you. I mean, it does sound a bit like I'm a butler. Oh, hello, I'm doing my household tasks. But it's better than chores. Chores sounds like, oh, I'm just going to go do my chores now. But yeah, I listened to Savage Son. It's excellent so far. I'm a few chapters in. But maybe we'll have him, or we have so many people from the Spec Ops side who could talk to us just about, how crazy it is that this guy is. I've just seen the beginnings of it. I'm going to dig into it more. I'm going to talk to some friends in the community, too, to see what's going on here. But this guy who is SF, who wanted to have a coup, basically a one-man coup against Maduro. I mean, I joke around with friends of mine all the time that, when I had enough agency and Spec Ops guys all drinking together, hey, you got enough brain power and firepower here to overthrow a small country. But we're kidding. It seems like maybe this guy didn't think that people were kidding when they talk like that. So we'll get into that tomorrow. I think that's a fascinating situation. But I bring up Venezuela because the way that Cuomo talks about things, if you have your health, you have everything. Well, it's really hard to stay healthy when you don't have an economy. It's really hard to stay healthy. Think of all of the people out there right now who don't have COVID-19 but have serious health problems. And what happens when they can't get routine medical care? What happens when they have to wait for chemo, for surgeries, for all kinds of heart procedures, which is happening all over the country? What happens to your health when you're told to stay indoors, not see your loved ones, not enjoy life? Okay, watching Netflix and eating ice cream is fun for a week or two. It has now become sad. We don't want to do this anymore. Well, we want to do it sometimes, but we don't want to do it all the time, all right, which is basically where we are right now. You cannot have a healthy society if you do not have a functioning society. Ask any prisoner. Take a look at anybody who's ever been sent to federal prison. And I mean, it's a stark reminder of really how brutal prison life really is, psychologically and physically. And I don't just mean because of the possibility, the high probability of being assaulted and physically abused inside a prison, which says a lot about our state and its ability to protect people that are in its custody. Conversation for another time. But if you look at anybody who's gone into federal prison, they usually lose a ton of weight. Their cheeks become sunken in. Their eyes become lighter. I mean, they look worn and defeated. We're doing this to ourselves increasingly as a society. We're making people worn out and defeated. Can't see your family, can't see your friends, can't do your job, can't really go out. And let's be honest about this. Going out with a mask outside is better than nothing, but it's not great. It's not great. I want to breathe fresh air. I don't want to be sucking in some cotton mask made in China. Thank you very much. That's not what I want. Oh, but it's fine, and you have to do it to protect other people. You know, Cuomo is representative of this mentality that we have control over this. And this is where you get to a fundamental philosophical distinction between the lockdown consensus and the reopen movement. The lockdown consensus suggests that if only we listen to them, lives will be saved, and that's all that matters. The reopen movement is saying lives are being lost. You can't stop the spread of this disease, not even close, and you're destroying everything around our society by doing this lockdown, and you've changed what the initial mission is, and you won't give us an end date. When is enough enough? And now we're hearing, but about the second wave. Here's a little factoid. If there's going to be a second wave because we start living life normally again, there will be a second wave in June or in September or in January. It doesn't matter. It's coming. If what we're doing isn't enough, meaning if the mitigation and if we're not able to get therapeutics and get research going that would prevent a second wave, if what we're doing isn't enough, it doesn't matter if we open next week or next month. The second wave is coming, my friends. Now, I don't think it is. Remember this, too. What happened to the Spanish flu? We didn't beat it. We didn't even understand. This will give you a sense of how, well, and this is a whole other conversation, but we think that our medical world is so advanced and so sophisticated and really, I mean, you go back 100 years and our knowledge of medicine was primitive. And I mean around the whole world. I mean the smartest doctors, our knowledge in 1920, 1918, primitive. We were at the basics, the early phase of medical knowledge. And yet the Spanish flu faded away. Now, how did that happen? A lot of people got infected. A lot of people had immunity. And then the human race just moved on. We will get past this. It is a guarantee. In the meantime, what we're trying to figure out is what kind of countries and societies and lives will we be able to lead now and after this thing passes. And as I've been telling you, lock yourself up and hide from all of this for everybody, for some people that have particularly high vulnerability, but also remember that the people that have particularly high vulnerability, if we could focus energy and protection measures on those who do feel they're at higher risk, wouldn't we then be in a better position to make sure that they're living fuller, better, longer, healthier, happier lives, right? If we did have procedures in place to make sure that, if you're going to go to a nursing home to visit your loved ones, gosh darn it, we're going to check and make sure you're totally clear of the virus and that we have the best measures in place and that you can, if you are going to go and see your loved relatives there, you can do so without endangering them. That kind of focus and those kinds of procedures would make things better for everybody. But instead, what we have is this slapdash approach of, we're going to protect everybody, but we're going to send New York State's going to send people with COVID-19 back into the nursing facility and tell us all that they care so much about protecting lives. Cost doesn't matter. Cost doesn't matter, huh? Interesting for the state of New York to say that, especially given that they were unwilling to make additional to take additional precautions and procedures in order to protect those who are most vulnerable from this. The moral blackmail we all face on this question is going to be massive. People don't want to admit that they were wrong. They have this need to believe that the scientific consensus is accurate and will protect them. And they also do want to use this as the ultimate issue. This, from a purely political perspective, put aside all the human death and carnage and the terrible stuff that's going on here. Just from a purely political perspective, this is the biggest opportunity the Democrats could have possibly been given by circumstance. An economy that is crashing and all this blame that they're trying to put on Trump so they can put forward a pathetic candidate. I mean, Joe Biden's a pathetic candidate for the presidency. We all know that. But they might get it done because of circumstance. and they're not letting that go.
Look, here's the story. There's nothing I can do to satisfy the media, the Democrats, or the fake news, and I understand that. We did the greatest job mobilization in history with the ventilators, and I don't think there was a story what a great job we did. Now we're helping Germany, and we're helping many other countries, France, Spain, and Italy, by the way, and Nigeria, sending 250 to Nigeria ventilators. And 2 months ago, we didn't have any ventilators for ourselves. The cupboards were bare, right, Deborah? They were bare. People have no idea. There's not a thing I can do to satisfy the fake news, and there's not a thing I can do to satisfy Democrats.
It's true. Just look at the ventilator story. I mean, we were in a national mass panic over our ventilator deficit. And now we're like the ventilator superpower of the planet. In fact, we are the ventilator superpower of the planet. You don't see a lot of stories about that, do you? Not much less interest. Trump wasn't using the Defense Production Act. I saw so many journos making that case. And then he did use the Defense Production Act. And we got plenty of, and he already had been negotiating with companies, and we got plenty of ventilators now. More than we need. We're giving them to other people. Oh, but Trump he doesn't act fast enough, they say. These people are full of it.